What's up guys, it's Coach Cam, and today I want to go over two research papers that I found in the book Body by Science. Now, if you have never read this book, I highly recommend that you buy it and read it. So this book is written by Dr. Doug McGuff and John Little, two very intelligent people when it comes to exercise science. So there are two research studies in this book that are mentioned throughout chapter 2, I believe. And in this research studies, it's amazing what they found. And these are some landmark studies when it comes to cardiovascular endurance improvements. So let's dive right in. The first study is titled 6 Sessions of Sprint Interval Training Increases Muscle Oxidative Potential and Cycle Endurance Capacity in Humans. This study was published in June 2005. Okay, so this has been around. Which makes me mad. But let's continue. Okay, this study only took place over a 2-week period. That's right, 2 weeks. One group performed sprint interval training. What they did was they were on a cycle, okay? And they performed 30 seconds all out on a cycle machine, followed by a few minutes of rest. They did this between 4 to 6 times, and they performed these sessions 3 days a week. So if you add up the math, that means they only trained for 4 to 6 minutes each session. And then, no, each session is only 2 to 3 minutes. Each session is only 2 to 3 minutes, and they did this 3 times a week, right? So 9 minutes in a week they trained. They compared this to a group of recreational lifters, recreational fitness, college students at the university, and they compared them pre and post. They didn't actually do an intervention on the college students. They just compared their testing data before and after. What the study found was the group that did the sprint intervals 3 times a week for 2 weeks, each session only being 2 to 3 minutes of actual work, doubled their time to exhaustion on the bike. That's right, it doubled it. And you might say, well, how's that possible? They were training anaerobic, right? They were training so intensely that there's no way it would have carried over to an aerobic event. Wrong, okay? The intensity that was put forth in those intervals transfers to all of your body's metabolic improvements, all of your body's cardiovascular improvements, even though they were only 30 seconds each, and they had 4 minutes of recovery between those 30-second bouts. The other group of recreational lifters, non-intervention group, they tested the exact same after 2 weeks. They didn't improve at all. So what this study showed was that only 6 minutes a week was needed to double your endurance. 6 minutes a week. And they accomplished this in 2 weeks. So what happened with this study was it made the news. It was very popular. It was very widespread and made known. But people were saying, well, if they had a group that actually trained endurance, they would have done better. So that brings us to our second study. Second study is titled Short-Term Sprint Interval versus Traditional Endurance Training. And then they say similar initial adaptations in human skeletal muscle and exercise performance. What they did in this time was they had one group perform long endurance of 90 to 120 minutes of continuous cycling at 65% of their VO2 max. So 1.5 hours to 2 hours were the sessions. And this was over 2 weeks. The intense cycling group did either 4 or 6 repeats of 30 seconds all out at what equates to 250% of their VO2 max, with 4 minutes of recovery in between. Okay, so same protocol for the intense group and the endurance group, 1.5 hours to 2 hours each time. So over the 2 weeks, 2.5 hours was accumulated for the all-out intense group, and then for the endurance group, they accumulated 10.5 hours. So that's going to include the rest times, obviously. What they found was that, well, just based off training time alone, the intense group trained 90% less than the endurance group. And they say here that training decreased the time required to complete 50 and 750 kilojoules cycling time trials with no difference between groups. The biopsy samples obtained before and after training revealed similar increases in muscle oxidative capacity as reflected by the maximal activity of cytochrome C oxidase and subunits 2 and 4 protein content. Training-induced increases in muscle buffering capacity and glycogen content were also similar between groups. Given the large difference in training volume, this data demonstrates that intense training is a time-efficient strategy to induce rapid adaptations in skeletal muscle and exercise performance that are comparable to endurance training in young active men. So while one group spent 6 hours a week training, the other group trained for 9 minutes a week. So you tell me, how does some group who trains for 9 minutes get the same results as somebody who trains for 6 hours a week? The answer is intensity. When you train intensely, you stimulate all of the pathways in your body. It's not aerobic versus anaerobic. It's all of them are stimulated and being maximally recruited to provide energy and ATP. And then those adaptations that your muscle is going to have are cross. They're both aerobic and anaerobic adaptations. All of it has been stimulated, so all of it is going to try to be adapted and produced by the body. So while one group, if you base it down to the work, one group did 97% less work than the other. So you tell me what's more efficient. And the reason I'm posting this is because there are some supposed experts that keep posting conditioning, training content, and they say stuff like training hard just for a few minutes just can't give you the benefits that long and slow training can. Or, even if you're a sprint power athlete, you still need to do cardio. Well, based on this research that we've had since 2005 and 2006, going hard in an activity that maximally stimulates your body's aerobic and anaerobic systems gives you all of those adaptations in far, far, far less time. This is why you'll find me saying that it's kind of a waste of time to do really easy work, right? Really easy cycling, cycle for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, really easy. Walking, really easy for a few hours. Or, all this really easy training, right? There's just this idea that low intensity training gets you benefits that high intensity doesn't. And this is just unfounded. This idea is unfounded. And instead, what I advocate for is that you train hard, that you train intensely, so that you can stimulate your body to gain all of the possible adaptations. So, it's up to you if you're trying to pick a modality that's safer, right? It might sound like, well, Cameron, if I go to a track and do sprints, that's not very safe for my legs, my joints, my shins, right? My Achilles. It's gonna get me injured. Okay, well, I didn't say run, okay? And I didn't say cycle, even though that's what they use for this study. You can get these same adaptations using weights, right? I have a video on my YouTube page. Scroll way back. It's like my second or third video where I compare a rower machine for cardio versus a seated cable row. And I'll just give you the synopsis of my thoughts in that, which is that performing a cardiovascular row machine, which you do over and over for minutes on end, you never reach muscle failure. Your muscle fibers are recovering and they're firing asynchronously. So some muscles fire, some recover, and it just keeps cycling through that so that you can continue to perform the exercise. And then because you're not reaching failure, you're not maximally stimulating your body's aerobic system. So instead, what you'd rather do is do the seated cable row with enough resistance that you do eventually reach muscle failure, that your muscle fibers do not get a chance to recover during the exercise, and instead your body has to sequentially recruit more and more fibers to keep the exercise going, to keep your muscles contracting against the resistance as certain fibers are getting fatigued. When you reach muscle failure in a very intense manner, you are stimulating your body's hypertrophy, strength, cardiovascular, metabolic, and bone and tendon strengthening all in one. Your muscles don't know the modality. They don't know if you're on a bike or if you're doing squats, right? They don't know what you're doing, but they do know effort and they do know the tension, right? So you want to put them under tension and get that to where it's high effort, which is training with weights to failure. Voila. That's the best way to get these adaptations in a safe way. I didn't say move the weights fast. I didn't say lift heavy. You can use a moderate or even a lighter weight and move it slowly, contract the muscles slowly, as long as it's heavy enough and the resistance is perceived as heavy enough for your muscles to eventually reach failure within a minute, 2 minutes, somewhere in that time frame. You know that you have stimulated your body maximally. Most people just don't push themselves this hard. Why? Because they train every day. Most people train 5, 6, 7 days a week. So if I just trained yesterday, back, and today's chest, there's no way I'm gonna be able to put my mindset in the right place to push my all and really get the most gains out of it. So it's worth training intensely with weights, taking the recovery days so that you can actually train for progressive overload, so that you can actually improve every single workout. You should be improving every single workout. That was a bit of a tangent, obviously, but you can see how this all ties together, right? Training intensely gets you all the adaptations of lower intensity training and then some. It's better than low intensity training. It saves you time. It saves your joints. All that repetitive motion that you get with cycling, running, swimming, the overuse injuries in those types of sports are crazy. So no, do not overuse your tendons and joints. Train safely with weights to get all the adaptations possible. So hopefully you guys learned something from this. Do not buy the idea that a bunch of low intensity, easy training isolates your cardiovascular system, because it doesn't. Your cardiovascular system doesn't know if you're doing squats or if you're running or if you're swimming. It doesn't know. Your nervous system would know. And, learning that motor pattern and the neural gains you would get from those activities is largely what's responsible for your improvement and progress in those activities of running, biking, and swimming. So if you want the cardiovascular benefits, you can get that with weights, but more importantly, what these studies are trying to tell you is that you can get that with very intense training in a very short amount of time. You do not need to be spending hours and hours a week to get these benefits. And in fact, the researchers were asked if they thought, that the intervention group could do even less, right? Instead of 3 days a week, could they get away with 2 days a week, something like that? And the researchers said likely, yes. Likely they could have done even less and gotten the same results. So that's extreme, right? It's extreme, but that's what the research says. So if you're going to be evidence-based, you're going to call yourself an evidence-based trainer, you need to understand that training intensely is the best bang for your buck, saves you time, saves your joints. What more do you want? And gets you the most results. So that's it for today, guys. Hopefully you learned something from these 2 studies. Feel free to like the video. Please share the video. That helps the channel to grow. If you want to see content like this or something similar, comment down below what you want to see next. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.